Launch into it. First of all, welcome to DevLearn 23, and thank you for spending the first session of the expo with me. I'm really honored to have your time. My name's Tammy Rutherford. I'm the Managing Director at Rustici Software, and today we're going to be talking about Alarm.com and their training content strategy. You'll notice that Ian McConnell is joining us. He is the Digital Learning Manager for Alarm.com. We had originally planned to do this session together in person. Sometimes life comes up and you have to pivot and adjust, as we've all learned to do over the past few years. So Ian has graciously pre-recorded some videos with us, and for those that are joining us live in the virtual stream, Ian is actually in that Zoom session and will be fielding some questions on chat. So we had to get a little creative this year. Thanks for bearing with us. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more about Alarm.com, how they're using Content Controller for their content strategy. And to start with, I wanted to give you a little background on who all of these logos are. So Rustici Software is where I'm from, and for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we're the folks in the room that specialize in the technical standards like SCORM, XAPI, CMI5, all of those fun acronyms that are the standards that work under the hood to make content and platforms play well together. We've been doing this for over 20 years and work with many of the vendors that you're going to see out here today in the expo and hear about during the sessions this week. Back in 2021, we started working with Alarm.com, and for those of you who don't know who Alarm.com is, they provide a leading platform for interconnection across your home or property or business. Think video surveillance, security, intelligent automations. You kind of get the picture of the things we're talking about here. Energy management, thermostat settings, things like that. Even wellness solutions. So they really specialize in that connected property, and they leverage an extensive global dealer network to provide and sell their products and certified technicians that handle that installation. And so thinking about that, you have a training content program. You have to have a training program to support all of those broad audiences. And as the Internet of Things continues to evolve and we add smart mops and all sorts of other things that can do cool stuff in our house, Alarm.com is keeping up with that. So their training team is busy and growing, and the audiences that they train are busy and growing as well. So we're going to talk today about how they're leveraging Content Controller to reach all of those various audiences. As a quick primer, Content Controller, the product that we're going to be talking about today that Alarm.com uses, is a content distribution solution. So it allows you to distribute content across multiple LMSs. So if you're delivering courses across more than one system, if you've ever felt that pain already, you know that it can get pretty cumbersome when it comes to content compatibility, managing access, keeping version controls up to date, and even managing data. So Content Controller is a solution that we work with Alarm.com for to help solve many of those problems. It supports multiple standards from an input and then allows you to share access to those courses via SCORM proxy files or LTI links, for example. So rather than bringing your content to every single one of these systems, you bring your learners from those systems to your content. So it allows you to keep that content in one place. So that's the quick 1-minute view of Content Controller. But let's jump in and hear directly from Ian on how they're using Content Controller.
Our partner education team that they had dealers or customers of ours that were looking to have our content, but they wanted it within their own LMS. And so the original approach was probably an approach that most people would take, is that we would just export, make duplicates of our SCORM exports, put it into a Dropbox folder, and then send that link to those folks. But the challenge with that obviously is a big content management nightmare. It can turn into that pretty quickly, where, you know, if we made an update in one spot, we had to now find it in all these different spots and make sure that all the files were the same. So Content Controller really solved that problem, because we could just create one file, upload it to Content Controller, and then push it to as many LMSs as we needed to.
I think I've got my audio back, so bear with us. That we're pushing all the boundaries today. They warned us not to do video and audio, but we really wanted to bring Ian's words and story to this program. So I think we're going to be working out some kinks along the way, so thanks for your patience. But the things that Ian really mentioned there are the challenges that really come up with trying to support content across multiple systems. And what I love about this story is that when Alarm.com originally came to us in 2021, their partner education team came to them and said, can you help us support our dealer network? We have dealers that have their own platforms. Can you help us bring our content to each one of those platforms so that they can use their system of choice versus sending them somewhere else? And so the original use case started with content controllers solving the need for their dealer platforms. And then as their education team, their training team looked at things, they said, hey, we have other LMSs that we could use this for as well. We have our internal LMS, Workday Learning is what they use to train their product support associates. And then they have SkillJar instances that they use to support their dealer and subsidiary academies all around the world. So they were able to start seeing ways that they could take advantage of this distributing content across multiple systems besides just their dealer platforms. And so the other thing that came out of this story as Ian and I got to know each other and talk a little bit more were what he called happy surprises. And this part, I always love when somebody can find more than one use case for a product that they purchase. And as the Alarm.com L&D team started digging further into the things that Content Controller can do, they started seeing places where they could solve even more problems. So aside from just that initial use case, train my technicians in the platform of choice that they're in, they then discovered that as a result of being able to use Content Controller, they had a central place to house their content. They have a team of over 30 L&D professionals that are, while all on the same team and working together, all come from various parts of the business. And so for them to be able to manage those courses in one place, let their associates pilot, review, collaborate as they're building and testing their courses before going into production was a huge win for them. The big one, though, that I'm really excited, Ian will get to this here in just a moment, was their ability to streamline content updates. So prior to having Content Controller, they had a pretty cumbersome process to update and maintain their courses, where it was a bi-weekly process. Every other Monday at 6 a.m., they would take the system offline, they would rapidly push the updates, and then let their learners come back in. And it took a lot of time and obviously a lot of pressure on certain people to execute that plan. So when they discovered that they could update a course once and have those changes be automatically available across systems, that was probably their biggest, happiest surprise that they'd seen so far. Additionally, they're very forward-thinking in their content approach. They leverage CMI5 for the standard of choice for the courses that they build to take advantage of XAPI data and the learning record store that's embedded in Content Controller. And now this matches well with their strategy of leveraging a learning record store to house all of their data. And it was not something that they originally thought about when coming in using Content Controller. And then they've also been expanding into their global audiences. They have subsidiaries around the world and developed this courseware in multiple languages. And there's some efficiencies that come with Content Controller when managing multiple language opportunities. So as I mentioned, we've got the global content library within Content Controller. It allows you to manage your courses in one place. It's a single source of truth for your courses. It gives you the ability to test and debug courses before they go out into the world, into production. It has foldering and bundling options within Content Controller to allow you to organize your courses and easily manage them across multiple teams. And it supports multiple standards and formats. So if you're working on CMI5, for example, as your standard of choice, like Alarm.com is, not every one of your customers or target LMSs might be there yet with that type of support. So you can actually create it, import CMI5 content into Content Controller, and then share that file out as a SCORM 1.2 or SCORM 2004 proxy file. So you're able to speak the language of your customer's LMS without inhibiting or preventing or slowing down your content strategy.
Before Content Controller, it would require that we would publish to, at a minimum, 2 or 3 different versions of the same module. So the module might be published to SCORM 1.2, 2004 version 3, and then CMI5. For to make an update, we would have to make sure that we published all 3 of those. With Content Controller, you can store your content in the version that you want. So in our case, it's CMI5, but you can dispatched to different versions. So if the same course can be fed to an LMS that only supports SCORM 1.2, and it can track in both spots using a different format or a different publishing standard.
So yeah, so as Ian's describing there, not only is managing multiple versions or multiple standards cumbersome when you start to get into updates and versioning, you can only imagine the exponential lift that's going to look like as you're versioning every single version of every single course multiple times. So as I mentioned on the front end, aside from just being able to support that dealer network and easily giving them access to training, versioning was, I think, probably the thing that Alarm.com bumped into where they realized, oh, content management and maintenance is actually the thing I really, really have the biggest problem with and where they've seen the biggest gains. So with Content Controller, because there's only one course, your sort of master source of truth for that course, you're only maintaining it and updating it in one place. Every time you make an update or a change, whether it's fix a typo, swap out an image, or it's something major, the next time a learner launches that course, you decide which version they get. So sometimes you want to let them continue on the progress. If they've already invested an hour into that course, the last thing you want to do is reset their progress just because you fixed a typo. However, sometimes those changes are meaningful and really big and impactful, and you do need to reset their progress. So Content Controller gives you that lever to say, small change, let them continue on, or no, this is a big change. They need to start the course all over again because this has some significant impact. So you get to decide. The benefit here, though, is that you're managing this all in one place. Your customers, there is no further import or upload to an LMS for that course. Once the change is made, it's automatically available. So there's no additional administration time to export that course, re-import it, assign it in the target LMS. It's all handled seamlessly. So in the case of Alarm.com, they love
So the
this
process
feature.
before Content Controller was complex, and it introduced a lot of opportunity for, I guess, user pain. So I know that's not a really eloquent way to put that, but basically we would have to either interrupt progress on a course to update it, or we had to, and what we ended up doing later was just having this very complex updating and maintenance schedule.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, and we could go into further detail here, but the short story is, without something like Content Controller in place, they were taking their system down every other Monday, scrambling to get the updates ready, tested, approved, so that they could push them in that very narrow maintenance window. Because every time they had a maintenance window, they had to tell learners, stop or hurry up. Stop doing what you're doing because you're going to get reset, or hurry up and finish it before we reset you. So you can imagine the turmoil that brought in. So this has really saved them a ton of time and headache for both their administrators and their technician learners. So as I mentioned earlier, they're CMI 5 forward, so they're using CMI 5 today for their courses to leverage that XAPI power to get that granular level detail that XAPI allows you to collect. And if I'm saying acronyms that are new to you, feel free to, we'll happily talk more to you about CMI 5 and XAPI at our booth later today and help you understand the differences there. But for Alarm.com, they're able to leverage that CMI 5 and XAPI support to collect the data that they want. Within Content Controller, there's two ways you can really work with the reporting and the data. There's built-in reporting dashboards and analytics so that you can see analytics far and wide, or you can go narrow and deep. So in the far and wide category, you can see a course's utilization in aggregate. If it's delivered across multiple systems, you can see how that course is performing in aggregate across all of those systems. If you want to go deep, you can go down to question and answer level detail analysis on that course itself. So you can see, what question is everyone getting wrong, for example? Maybe I need to rephrase it. Maybe I need to go back and make sure the content's useful in explaining that topic. Similarly, on the learner side of things, you can look at learner level data across an organization, or you can go narrow and deep to see how did that particular person answer that particular question. So there's definitely ways that you can use Content Controller to manage the data. In Alarm.com's case, because they have a learning record store, they're piping all of the data out of Content Controller into their learning record store to do that analysis. Previously, they had looked at doing things like custom integrations, exporting as a CSV, and then getting clever to import it somewhere else. So you have a lot of options and configurations that you can use. But again, because all of that courseware is together, you have a big pool of data and a big place to go swimming. You just have to decide what you want to do with it.
The other thing it allows us to do is consolidates all the integrations that we need to connect to our LRS. So Content Controller can just push using just an endpoint all of the information from Content Controller, all the different interactions, completions, scoring, etc. Can just push that just using a really simple, you put in the URL, the endpoint for the LRS, and it pushes all that data to the LRS. So it saved us a lot of time and money rather than having to create a custom integration or some process where we need to export CSV data from an LMS, convert it into the right format, and then get it into the LRS. We can just have it, everything funnels through Content Controller to our LRS. So that, as far as our data strategy goes, Content Controller has been a big part of that, continues to be a big part of that.
Excellent. So that was really one of the other fun ones when I heard how much they were doing with XAPI and how helpful Content Controller was for them as they were thinking about this data strategy. It was really exciting just to hear the amount of time and headache they've relieved themselves of thinking about. There's no additional integration work required. It fits seamlessly within their overall larger picture learning record store model. So that was a big win for them and fun for us to hear. Because again, we're the standards nerds. So if people are doing stuff with XAPI and CMI5, we get really excited and we're happy to help support that. So lastly, on the happy surprise list of the benefits that they discovered along the way was the support for multiple languages. So within Content Controller, there's a feature called equivalence, and that allows you to basically map every language version of a course towards a title. So if you think about the best way to describe this, if you offer a course in 5 languages, you have 2 options here. One is you're managing 5 different course files over here and over there. If you're updating it over here, then you're updating it over there. If you're importing it into an LMS, you not only have to import 5 things, you then have to assign or decide who gets those 5 different things. Within Content Controller, there is an organization or a mapping, if you will, where all 5 of those courses that are the exact same course, just different languages, roll up into an equivalent. So you manage it once as basically the title of the course. You deliver it to your customer for them to import into their LMS as a single course. So it acts as one unit. And then when the learner launches the course, it provides an option for them to say, which language do you want to take this course in? So it smartly manages this language options for you without you managing however many versions you need to based on however many languages you support. So in the case of Alarm.com, they do have global subsidiaries, so they are starting to increase their reach and develop and create localized versions of their courses, and this just dovetails very nicely for them in that strategy and helping manage that more seamlessly.
As we expand into other countries as well as our international presence grows, Content Controller, we're working with our international team where we can localize content into a bunch of different languages, and then we can create what's called an equivalent in Content Controller, where it's basically a single module that supports multiple. It's a single file that supports multiple modules in different languages, and then you can push that to the LMS. So on the learner experiences, they would go in, fire up the course or the module in their LMS. They would get the option to select the language that's appropriate for them, and then take that content in that language. So
yeah, so the equivalence, kind of a hard topic to describe. I'm happy to talk to you more about it after this session, but for them, I think it's really, again, marries very nicely with their plans going forward for supporting that international audience. So this is, so we're kind of coming towards the end of things and just wrapping things up. The environment that Alarm.com is operating in today has grown dramatically since we started working together in 2021. They have 35 L&D employees that are building and maintaining their content. They have over 600 courses that they've deployed across those 3 audiences that we looked at a little earlier. And then the learners across those 3 audiences roll up to over 100,000 worldwide. That's the sales professional and dealer, that's the technician that is delivering that service, and that's the product support associate within Alarm.com that's supporting that product. So the reach is far, and the Content Controller has been a really helpful tool for them to maintain, to reach that audience that's growing even more.
It's just really streamlined our content management as well, to the point that we don't have to spend as much time doing it. I mean, we don't have a single content manager, like a person. We don't have that role because our team is, agile enough where anybody can kind of go in and do the content management on their own. So it's probably saved us money on that end, but also more importantly, I think it's just saved us a lot of time so that we can focus on, other things like developing content instead of managing it.
So what Ian says there in the end was the thing that got my attention the most, which is their team spending more time developing content than managing it. I think everyone would agree that it's much more fun and exciting to develop that courseware and make sure it's effective. The management of it, the administration of it, keeping up with these minor changes and making sure all of these things stitch together well and that these systems work well with it, that can bog you down quite a bit. So their ability for their team to just be agile enough to come in, work well together, and focus on developing and improving their content versus administering it, I think has been a huge time saver for them. So again, this is sort of wrapping things up, that it's been a lot of fun working with Alarm.com. It's been great to see them being able to take advantage of all of the features and functionality. We don't normally see a customer that actually finds a value in every single one of those features. So for them to be able to say, yes, we can use the testing and debugging and review our content before it goes out. We can version on the fly and save ourselves a lot of time and headache. We can leverage XAPI, and we can use that equivalence feature to support our multiple language offerings. Has been, for us, just so much fun to hear and to collaborate with them. So, one of the core values that Alarm.com hangs their hat on is building for the future. And we can see that obviously as they look at that connected building, that connected property, and how can we make buildings smarter and keep up with the Internet of Things, and having a training strategy that keeps up with all of the things that they're building for their customers and their dealers. Being able to support that with their analytics and their content strategy has been a lot of fun. So I want to thank Ian for being a great sport and video recording some things with us ahead of time. And thank you all for joining us here and listening to the Alarm.com story. You can find us at booth 706. So Rustici will be at 706 all week. We've got a QR code that will get you some additional resources that we have talked about today. And I'm happy to answer questions anyone has here. And I think there'll be some questions happening on the Zoom meeting as well via